What if I told you that there is a law in Georgia that gives former homeowners a cause of action if they have been swindled out of their equity by investors? Well, there is. And today, that's what I want to talk to you about. My name is Sharon Smoot. I am a real estate attorney and a realtor in the metro Atlanta area. And today, I want to share with you some information about SB 1292. SB 1292 went into effect on January 1st, 2025. And it says, it does a lot of other things. It puts in some things that try to protect homeowners from deed forgery, which is a huge problem that's on the rise, like title theft. But it also gives former homeowners a cause of action if they've been bilked out of their equity by a shady vulture investor. And what SB 1292 says is that if an investor makes an unsolicited offer on a property, they have to disclose that that offer may not be the fair market value of the property, and they also have to disclose if the offer is less than the previous year's assessed value. That's really interesting. It's really interesting. So years ago, I used to get calls routinely from investors, and their standard question, and I'm assuming they're getting this from these classes that they do online. They used to be advertised as infomercials back in the day. And I would assume now that, so many of these classes are offered online. But anyway, the standard question was, are you investor friendly? And my answer was always, yes, I am investor friendly. We talk about ARV, what they're looking for, etc. And the majority of the time, I'd never hear from these people ever again. And what I many times concluded is that they were just learning and following the scripts that they were given, but really didn't have the wherewithal to actually purchase a property, renovate it, and flip it or rent it out. But the standard question was, are you an investor-friendly realtor? These days, the calls and texts and emails that I get are all asking a very different question. And that question is, do you have any off-market properties? They don't want properties that are listed for sale. And there's a reason for that. Their intention is to come in way below fair market value. So remember, SB 1292 requires that when an investor makes an unsolicited offer to purchase a property, they must disclose that their offer may be below fair market value. So why are so many investors these days interested in off-market properties? They don't want a ready, willing, and able buyer to have an opportunity to make an offer on that property. They want an unsuspecting homeowner. And when I say they, I don't want you to think that I am making accusations against all investors, because not all investors are like this. I'm talking about the shady ones, okay? But they want unsuspecting homeowners who don't have a realtor representing them, who don't have anyone to guide them and make sure they understand the value of their property, because they want to make a lowball offer. So I'm going to give you a really good example. I had a client, and her mother had passed away, and the home that she lived in with her mother was only in her mother's name, and her mother left that property to her. However, there was some debt. Her mom left some debt over and above the mortgage that needed to be paid. And this client decided that she was, after a fashion, she had to go through her mourning process and what have you. But she decided that, the only way she was going to be able to pay off this debt was to sell the home. Well, probably within, I don't know, a week or two of her offering her mom's will for probate, she starts getting calls from investors. And this was before she retained me to help her sell this house. But she starts getting calls from investors. And I had trained her and told her, if you start getting calls from investors, tell them that you are not entertaining any lowball offers. There's a reason I told her that. I wanted her to let them know that she was not uneducated about what they were trying to do. And usually, when she said that, they would say, "Oh, okay, thank you," and leave her alone. Well, we end up listing the property, and we did it a little bit unconventionally. She wanted to get some upgrades done to the property in an effort to get top dollar for it. And the home was in good condition, but it had some outdated finishes. So she wanted to change out the countertops. It needed new carpet. She ended up uh, putting down some LVP flooring, which was not a part of her original plan, but she decided to do it. Took care of some deferred maintenance issues, what have you. But she decided that she wanted to get some eyes on the property before the work was completed, which is very, very unconventional. So we listed the property while the work was still being done. And she did that against my recommendation, but I do what the client wants me to do. Well, in the meantime, she got sick and fell behind on her mortgage payments. But I kept telling her, don't worry about it. The work is going to be done. And once that work is complete, surely we're going to get some offers because it is a beautiful home. Even without the work being done, it was a really nice house. So once she started to recover, she reached out to the mortgage company to find out, would they be willing to accept a partial payment in an effort for her to bring the mortgage current? And they said no. So that meant that she was just falling further and further behind. Well, we ended up getting an offer. And right around the time that offer came in, well, let me backtrack. Let me backtrack a little bit. So, one of the interesting things that happened after the property was listed is that she continued to get phone calls from investors. So they're circumventing me. My name is on the listing in both multiple listing services here in the metro Atlanta area. Those feed out to the major syndicated sites like Zillow and Realtor.com and what have you. And despite that fact, these people are calling her. Now, mind you, this was her mother's house. Her name's nowhere on title, but they're doing research and have found her cell phone number. Okay? They're not calling on the landline that was her mother's because her mom still had a landline at the time of her death. And my client didn't disconnect it because some of her mom's friends would still call, just to check on my client on the landline. So anyway, they're calling her on her cell phone, asking for her by name or asking for her mother, and completely circumventing me. And again, she was trained to tell them, I'm not accepting any lowball offers. If you're still watching at this point, just let me know by dropping the word greedy in the comments. Well, one day, I just happened to be at the house when one of these investors called her. And I said, put me on the phone. Let me talk to him. And I said to him, look, number one, she has a realtor. And so you should not be calling her directly. You should be calling me. And he's like, okay, that's fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He said, but I see how long the house has been on the market. And I said, you don't know the circumstances, but there's a reason why it's been on the market for as long as it has. And I explained to him that we did something unconventional and listed it while the renovation work was being done. Well, then he says, are you aware that a foreclosure sale date has been set? And I was not aware of that. My client had not received anything in the mail from the mortgage company notifying her that a sale date had been set. So, and I'm so going out of order. But I ended up telling him, look, you are not the first investor who has contacted my client directly since this house was listed. I said, these investors have sent offers once she told them that she's represented. Some of them have sent offers as low as 160,000. The house was listed for around 400,000. We've gotten offers of 200,000. We even got an offer of 360. But that guy wanted my client to pay him 7% of the sales price to purchase the house. So I went on to tell him, look, it's a hard no on any lowball offers. And if you intend to submit an offer, you need to submit it to me. Do not submit it directly to my client. But I'm telling you now, if it's 200, if it's 160, if it's 360, it's going to be a no. And what did he do but submit an offer for $200,000? Now, he knew, because I sat there with my client and with her authorization, told him how much she had spent on the renovations. And I'll tell you this, she used a company to do the renovations that was willing to wait until closing to get paid. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to have as much work done on the property as she did. But again, her goal was to get top dollar for this property. And despite having been told all of that, this investor offered her $200,000. So my question is this: what happens to the unsuspecting homeowners who have no idea what their home is actually worth? And there are a lot of them out there. They don't know what it's worth. And, is the number on Zillow correct? Is it not correct? Is the assessed value on their tax bill the same as the fair market value? They don't know. And it typically is not. The assessed value is typically lower than the fair market value by at least 20%, if not more than that. So anyway, again, the question is, what happens when an unsuspecting homeowner, and especially when there is a distress situation, whether it is probate, a looming foreclosure, a divorce, what happens when they get the call from this investor who is friendly, seems like they want to help, and really all they want is to get that property for as cheaply as possible? So, back to my example, my client had had just about everything that you could possibly think of done to this property so that she could maximize its value. And I told this guy that very same thing. It's like, the house is move-in ready. You would literally have to do nothing to it. Yet he still offered $200,000, because what was he going to do? He was going to turn around, pay $200,000 for it. He wouldn't have had to do anything, list it for $400,000 and walk away with $200,000. Walk away with my client's equity. That's what his intention was. And so I wanted to do this video, not so much to denigrate investors, because, like I said, not all investors are like this. But I want to warn homeowners that if you are contacted by investors, be very, very careful. Be careful. Contact a real estate agent, contact multiple real estate agents, even if only to get an idea of what the fair market value of your property is. Hire, if you can afford it, hire an appraiser and have an appraiser look at your house and tell you what is the as-is value of this house. Find out what is the value if I do these upgrades. But you need to have someone who's looking out for you, whether it's by getting an appraisal or having a realtor who can give you an accurate assessment of your home's value. Because many of these investors are shady, they are vultures, and they are looking to pick all the meat off the bone and leave you with nothing. And if you are a homeowner who feels like you have been scammed out of your equity, I encourage you to retain a good real estate litigation attorney who can help you sue the individual or the company who bilked you out of your equity. That's not the type of real estate law that I practice. I am a real estate closing attorney. But if you're in Georgia and you feel like you have been taken advantage of, seek legal advice, because you might be able to recover some of that equity that was stolen from you. If you have any questions about the information contained in this video or anything else related to real estate in Georgia, feel free to drop them in the comments and I will be more than happy to answer them. If you haven't already done so, like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much.